Welcome, everyone. I think finally a session on AI. We've kind of beat around the bush of AI. Many ways we've talked about it with data, buy-in, as well as MarTech. But we figured we'd finally have a session on AI where we actually talk about the hype, cut through what's real and what's fake, and I guess what we're all having FOMO about, while thinking about how we need to inspire trust in using AI and the human aspect of it. So with that, I want to go ahead and let Gary and Kavita introduce yourselves.
Gary Kamikawa. I oversee all the marketing and growth tech for Amazon Music, including like personalization, some of the Alexa experiences, and how we leverage AI, both experiences that we create, as well as then the tools and capabilities that we build internally.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you, Aditya, for having us here. I'm Kavita Somwanshi, VP Engineering at TU, and I work to bring AI and personalization into our learner journey, ensuring that we make education fun, engaging, and effective, and at the same time, ensuring that we don't lose sight of the human side of trust. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. So to kick things off, as we constantly hear, AI is going to take all our jobs. If AI could take one aspect of your job tomorrow, what would it be? Gary, go ahead.
For me, I have so many meetings that I wish I could figure out AI to basically figure out like which meetings I need to be in person and which one I can have an AI Gary bot that goes and, takes all the notes or whatever, summarizes and, provides whatever input, small things, and then which things they'll just say, okay, we'll get back to you on that, and then tell me which action item or whatever that I need to come back on.
All right. What about you, Kavita?
Yes, honestly, scheduling. Again, I mean, imagine between work calendar, events, families, travel, all of that, it's crazy. I feel like I'm a full-time scheduler and a part-time engineer. So if AI can take all that portion of my day and, make it easier for me, I'm going to be an even bigger fan of this thing that we are hyping every day about.
For me, if I could take one part of my job, I'd say go through all my Slack messages and call out the ones I actually should respond to and ones I should just thumbs up or respond with an emoji and just get it off my plate. So I think we all can agree AI is in a hype cycle. Everyone thinks everyone is using AI. Everyone's curious about how everyone is using AI. And all our jobs are going to be taken over, and we're going to work for AI overlords, right? That's the future. And no, that's not the future, but that's what we want to talk about today. And the truth is obviously not AI overlords, and it's not no AI altogether. Somewhere between, and this is where I'd love to ask Gary, what are some of the results you guys have seen in implementing AI at Amazon Music? Yeah. And talk us through how that's been as a journey for you guys.
Yeah, I would firstly say that I view AI as not a replacement, but an augmentation. And so there's a couple experiences that we've created. When we think about music discovery, traditionally it's like, okay, you'll do some searches, there might be some recommendations, but it's hard to say, if I wanted, classic rock, live concert music from the 70s, right? You have to kind of know that information versus now with AI, you just sit there and we've created, AI generated playlists that people can give a lot more detail of really what they're looking for and have the AI say, okay, here's your recommended playlist for this music, right? Another one is things like we have these fan polls, right? Which artists are you rooting for to win a Grammy? And by doing that, we're getting explicit signals of hey, which artist does this person like, and adds to the personalization. Historically, a marketer would sit there and come up with, the question and then have to write, tons of variations in terms of the artist. And now that we have AI kind of driving a bunch of it, it's we can scale way more. We're able to actually take some of the signals that we already have and make sure that we're including maybe a popular artist or things that that person already is interested in. And so either it becomes a reinforcement of that information that we think they're interested in, or we're getting new signals from it. And so again, it's allowed us to significantly scale and create a more personalized experience that actually our users can relate to and feels like, okay, you're actually asking me things about artists that I might be interested in, as opposed to in my case, I'm not a rap listener. And if I got a poll asking about rap, I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. And I would just ignore it and not engage, right? The third one was, so I oversee a bunch of experiences on Alexa. And if anyone's engaged with Alexa, sometimes you'll do something and she'll respond with, her voice, and you kind of just tune it out, right? And so what we did an experiment initially with was if someone asked to play Taylor Swift's latest album and they didn't have the entitlement to that, then they'd get just this Alexa message that said, okay, upgrade to Amazon Music Unlimited and listen to this. Here's the terms and service. But instead, we did an experiment. We said, okay, Taylor, can you record some lines that's like, hey, listen to my latest album, Tortured Poet Department. And then we would get in the T's and C's, like, hey, upgrade. We didn't have Taylor saying, upgrade to Amazon Music Unlimited. What we found from that was, not only did we increase the conversions, but oddly enough, we got a ton of people asking repeatedly to listen. So we got way more engagement, that people were like, let me try to discover, like, hearing Taylor's voice again. And so that started a program that we started getting a bunch of artists to record these different recordings, but that still doesn't scale. Like, to ask, thousands and thousands of artists. And so now what we've been doing is using AI to generate more like DJ, mood, genre, era type voices, because we're finding that, again, people are just used to Alexa's voice and you kind of tune it out. Like, you ask for something and she rattles on and you're just like, I'm not paying attention. But by creating this more custom experience, more personalized to like the music we listen to or mood, we're seeing tremendous engagement, or for even upsells. And so, again, thinking about how AI is augmenting the experiences for what the customers are looking for.
So basically, you guys are doing a lot more engagement, a lot more personalization, and doing it at massive scale. Yep. That's to summarize. And that's what I love about this panel, is there's a yin and yang in terms of, like, you have all the consumer, and then you have Kavita, who also looks at it from an enterprise side. And now I want to ask, like, how are you guys thinking about it from the enterprise side, right? Like, deploying AI and thinking about the ROI of it and that aspect. How are you guys going about it?
I love when you ask that question around ROI and AI and justifying as to why do we need AI. I started my journey with implementing AI a couple of years ago, and there's always this buzz around how do you justify such a heavy investment for this new shiny tool? Here's my take on it. You do not need to justify any ROI, and here's why. You don't need to build any new metrics, anything that says this thing works. You focus on the metrics that your business and leadership already cares about. For example, customer retention, loyalty, revenue growth, efficiency. Once you understand what moves the needle, then you need to understand how AI can help you surpass your benchmarks or accelerate your speed to market. So it's not really about inventing new metrics. It's all about how is AI going to help you to get the speed to market. Let me give you an example. So, like I said, we started our journey a couple of years ago. I was running this implementation with a off-the-shelf product on AI. We were trying to automate all of our customer support function, trying to make sure that we're automating all of the repetitive tasks around customer service. What happened? We were piloting the whole project for about 8 weeks, and around the 6th week or so, it was absolutely astonishing to see. We're not even deployed the product. We were just piloting, and we saw about a 40% uptake in our case deflection rate. What that meant was we're not looking at new metrics, but our existing metrics are surpassing just with the use of, a small thing like automation. That said, I want to summarize saying that you don't need any new metrics. All you have to focus on is your existing metrics, figure out the 4 or 5 metrics, and those are the ones that you need to go after. So what you want AI to do for you is move the needle, move it faster, and increase its speed to market.
So basically, deploy AI and think about it as a way of optimizing and enabling employees and not just adding new metrics on top. And how do you get the current business metrics to going up and to the right? And that's what you're suggesting, instead of tacking on new layers to deal with things.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the businesses already have their established KPIs. They know what's going to move the needle. Can AI move that needle faster? That's the question. If it can, then that's your justification of the investment. If it cannot, then probably that's not the right place where you should be investing AI in that process.
Got it. So shifting gears a little bit, right? We talked about ROI and AI, but how about delivering AI at scale? How do you make sure it's personalized and timely? Because I'm sure everyone in this room is marketers, cares a lot about that, and that's the holy grail for many of us. But AI can enable that, but how do you make sure it is human and trustworthy and it doesn't feel creepy? Like, we've all been there where we got an email that feels a little bit over the line, where it's like, this doesn't feel like personalization. This feels like you just realized I did something and now you want me to do X or Y, and I'm like a little creeped out by it. And I like to call this, or I've heard others call this, graceful personalization. So it's like, yes, you know enough about me, you're engaging with me, but it doesn't feel creepy. I feel welcome. I feel like I can trust what's going on here. So I want to ask Gary, like, how you thought about this and
Yeah.
how have you guys done this?
When we think about communications, we want to care about the customer, right? You want to feel, again, especially in music, you want to feel like, hey, Amazon Music understands me, understands my tastes. It's providing recommendations that I enjoy, or informing me or helping me discover new music. And so when we think about that, really it's the how do I ensure that AI's great in figuring out some of the who, when, and some of the what messaging. But we want to make sure that it's providing value and it's interesting to the customer. And so this is where, when I said augmentation versus replacement, like you still need to have that human side that's, kind of the creative juice behind things, as well as kind of monitoring and keeping track of it, right? One of the other businesses came to me and, was talking about AI optimizing their campaigns. And basically they were all excited because AI figured out that they could send 15 emails a week to, maximize their conversions. And I looked at them like, okay, think about that for a moment. Do you want to receive 2 emails a day, more or less, throughout the week? And so, what I was pointing out was like, yeah, for a short term or for this window of time, it was figuring out like, hey, yep, I can just keep on messaging to optimize for this. But over time, you end up eroding that trust of the customer. You basically, like, who are you pissing off along the way? That either at one point they decide to opt out, and it's not going to be tied to a single campaign. They can look like, oh, this is the trigger point. It's going to be spread out. Or they just get desensitized and they just stop opening in general. And so when you actually have something of value to share with them, they're not going to be there watching and paying attention. And so, that's where you kind of have to balance this AI doing a bunch of things, optimizing, but you still need that human that's, kind of owning the creativity, as well as kind of being that check and balance to what the AI is doing and ensuring that it's not hallucinating or kind of going down a rabbit hole of, one KPI and missing out on other things long term.
Yeah, absolutely. The industry that I come from, which is education, publishing, scholarly publishing, research, trust is absolutely at the center and core of how our users and our customers, authors, research experience our products. I want to tackle that question in 2 parts. One is external trust and one is internal trust. There's a lot of buzz around job replacements, displacements, so we'll talk about it. But externally, any new technologies that we're using, we have to absolutely make sure that, we're not compromising on that trust aspect. Integrity around research is absolutely intact. Imagine there's thousands of researchers, millions, I would say, researchers in the world that are using these journals. They're sharing their scientific knowledge to advance on technologies, cure for cancer, cure for a lot of vaccines. The accuracy around what we produce in these journals is of utmost importance. That's what keeps us in business. Now, AI, there's, hallucinations, and how is this coming up? The way we tackle external customers or external aspects is making sure that we are 100% transparent in terms of how we're embedding AI in our workflows, whether it's, are we generating any content? Are we using AI tools for peer reviews of a manuscript? So we're 100% transparent to make sure that our customers understand what it means from a research perspective, what it means from an accuracy perspective, and how it impacts the overall experience of researchers and authors. That's on the publishing side. On the education side, again, it's absolutely important to understand how the learners, just like us, people that are going for continuous learning and that have enrolled in expensive programs with Howard, we want to make sure that the content that we produce, the experience that we give them, they're able to trust, and we remain, we keep our brand experience, our brand value intact. So that should not be compromised. Internally, I'll touch a little bit, I know we're short of time, but internally, we've, there's a lot of angst around, am I going to lose my job? What happens to a lot of these functions? And so there's a lot of that factor. But for any new technology such as AI to be successful, it is imperative for adoption. And the only way you can adopt these technologies is transform your workforce. How do you do that? The way we have been anchoring the message across bringing these new technologies into workforces, look at AI as your co-pilot, as your productivity agent. That's going to help you, drive your own work forward, but not as a competitor. I would say that has worked pretty well, not to the best still, but that has pretty much helped us kind of bring this concept of, can we share best practices? Can we bring in some of the best learnings within the organization and make sure that we're able to adopt this at scale. So, just to summarize, external, internal, take care that you're very transparent as much as possible with your customers and maintain your brand value.
So in the last part, right, what's interesting is we covered trust for the miscues, and before that we covered about how to get ROI. And this other part I want to touch is like adoption. You touched a little bit on that, Kavita, right? You said, hey, there's ways to do it, get people to buy in. There's frameworks. In our prep call, you're saying a center of excellence that you went about and deployed. I'd love to hear that side. And Gary, I'd love for you. There's another angle, again, the enterprise versus consumer side. That's why I love this panel so much. But love to hear how you got the center of excellence, how you got it ramped up, especially on the enterprise side, to getting that trust and buy-in for adoption.
So again, imagine, I've been asking you guys to imagine a lot. So imagine 3-4 years ago, everyone, all CEOs, all the CTOs wanted AI has to be absolutely everywhere. So it became like a checkbox. And then you have product, marketing, sales automation. Everyone's trying to do the random stuff. Siloed, fragmented, not the best practices. So we early on failed fast and learned fast, realized that if we have organizations, or if we have people within the organizations running these experiments in what you call as random acts of AI experiments, we're never going to be able to scale and really bring in the true value of AI. So we came up with this concept. I don't think a center of excellence concept is new, but how you implement and deploy that is the novelty, right? Yeah. So we came up with this idea of when we did the pilot, which I mentioned before, and saw some tremendous success, we came up with the fact that how about bringing the best and the brightest minds of the organization together and help us kind of build best practices, centralize a lot of the learnings, success, failures, help us run the pilots, and then eventually triage what we should be focusing on. What are the right use cases for the enterprise? And that, I would say, was absolutely phenomenal in terms of what we could do on the roadmap and quickly scale AI. Again, center of excellences are not meant to be bureaucratic. They're supposed to be catalysts in expediting how you bring your stuff to market. It shouldn't be about governance or too much about approvals and if you don't get my sign off you cannot go forward. It should be about how do we bring these people together so that we can bring all of this at an enterprise level and think about things holistically versus siloed pieces of AI. So I would say COEs are great as long as they're not bureaucratic and not stifling in the process, and they expedite some of this work that the organizations are planning to do.
So basically, COEs using it to be shepherding catalysts and change agents throughout the organization.
Absolutely. If you're looking at scale, then you do need that central authority. I wouldn't say authority, but like a central team of experts. But it's very experimental in the fact that smaller organizations could probably do it in a much more better way. Amazon, I would doubt you would want to do that. They want to be quickly doing it at the vertical level. So, but it did work for companies that I worked for.
Cool. So I think the other side, right, the yang to the yin is you deal with creatives, right, Gary? Artists.
Yeah.
Very different than your typical people who are driving disruption. And I'm sure they have a lot of thoughts when it comes how you're driving adoption with AI. And I'm sure many people have said this and thought it is going to take my job, not just my job, but can it replace me, what I bring to the table? Love to hear how you're driving adoption, getting the buy-in, and ensuring that fears are assuaged as much as possible.
I think there's three main groups of people. There's the early adopters that are just excited and they're just in there and embracing everything and kind of leading the way. But then you got this group that are interested and willing to do it, but they're hey, where do I get started? And prove it to me that this will actually do work. And then you have the ones that are again, terrified of it taking their job and being reticent to actually embrace it. And so a couple things that we've done is, one is trying to get people to understand the mindset of how your job exists, but changes, right? An example being if marketing is going to creative and say, hey, I have this campaign. Without AI, they go and say, I have this idea, here's my vision. The creative designer goes and spends time thinking about what that might be. And the designer is responsible for 0 to 100% on creating that visual creative. Whereas now with AI, what we're finding is that marketers can already start using prompts and kind of get an idea and get it to a certain extent. And that designer is actually more focusing on the 60 to 100 because they're already getting kind of that visual asset and a starting point, and they're doing the refinement and making everything align to the brand and capture the vision. And so as a result, we're seeing, one of two things. Either the designers are able to produce more variations, and so you can have more optimization or create more personalization to say, oh, this is the value prop in this one and the other, or just the time is significantly reduced. So what took 12 weeks is like now getting turned around in 2 or 3 weeks. So you can, you're not having to plan 3-4 months in advance. The other thing that we've done is doing like hands-on workshops, like taking, different kind of job functions or different things and saying, all right, let's talk about doc writing with AI and getting, some hands-on and getting people just in the tools, using them and being able to guide them through, because once they've kind of used it, then that helps them to be like, okay, I understand, and I've got some best practices, and they can start to apply it. Lastly, I think, again, when you talk about creative people, is also just reminding them that at the end of the day, humans are the visionaries. Humans are the ones that kind of understand what you have in mind, the creative, understand the tone and brand of what you're trying to do, and are the ones that are guiding AI to augment as opposed to replacing them. And so I think it's really just kind of bringing them along and how you go about getting people to experience it, and then carry on and like start making use of it in their daily lives.
Basically, showing what their future could be with AI, and taking a lot of the fears away, or at least being transparent about it, so they can see like, this is how your world could exist, this is how it benefits you, and this is where it could take you. So embrace or adapt so you don't die, essentially.
Yeah, one quick recommendation. If you use ChatGPT, go connect to Jobs GPT, and all you have to do is put in a product, your business title, whatever, and it'll go through and it'll say, hey, here's all the functions that you have today for this different role or your job. And then it will basically convert and say, like, what does that job function look like with AI? And so how does that work change in the future? And it kind of goes through and list, like if you're a product manager, it'll list 12, 13 different things that you do as a product manager. And so that's also helped people to, kind of see now I understand how this particular work that I do, AI is going to augment and change that, as opposed to just saying, there's not something that says you no longer need to do product research or something like that. So,
yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna go do that and see what I can get replaced out of myself. But with that, we have a room full of marketers, leaders, folks who launch campaigns, who are constantly in the weeds with data, and lead teams. And their job obviously is drive customer engagement and customer experiences. And in scaling AI and thinking about it, would love to know, how do you think AI is reshaping real-time engagement and decision-making in this aspect? And Gary, let's kick it off.
Yeah, I'll go brief for time. And I kind of mentioned, I think AI is great at, identifying some of the who, the what, the when, like right message, right channel, right time, those type of things. I also think it's great in discovery of experience and like helping you to improve the personalization that you're providing. But again, like I would just reinforce it, like it's great at augmenting and doing these things and speeding up, but you still need that human that's kind of participating in that and making sure that the AI doesn't go off the rails or do things that you're like, oh, that wasn't what I was intending, and I need to refine it, right? So many things, if you just ask AI to create an image, you're like, okay, no, that's not quite what I'm looking at, and you do a bunch of refinements. Well, the same thing from the marketer is like, great, you're still the creative genius behind it, and so you want to make sure that it's doing exactly what you want to drive your goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe real-time engagement and AI, it's a game changer in today's world, especially around personalization. And again, I'll give you one last imagination. So imagine you've enrolled in a 2-year degree program with Harvard. You've spent like $100,000 on that, and you're a working professional. So the first 4 weeks absolutely are where people drop off, because it's absolutely difficult to keep up with the work. And we see the biggest drop-offs in the first 4 weeks. Where we use AI and where AI can help is sort of become more of a enabler to that individual or to the learner to make sure that their journey end to end in the 2 years is a lot more successful. So the focus is not as much as on, can we do AI or can we automate something? It's more about, are our learners able to graduate? Are we able to have probably a 3 to 4% uptick in our retentions? And that means millions in a lifetime value. For example, personalizing the entire journey by maybe sending nudges, small little things like nudges. Hey, you forgot to log in. Do you need support? Or are you struggling with something? Sending personalized intervention plans, or maybe a professor bot which is like an avatar of your professor going and nudging and saying, you got to stay on track. We're going to graduate in 16 weeks or whatever that is. But the whole idea is real-time responsiveness is what the game changer is when it comes to AI and personalization. And within the education industry, especially when it's shifting online, I don't see a world where we cannot use this technology and use it at scale.
Got it. So I think in the interest of time, I want to say, this is my favorite question to close. What's one piece of advice you give folks in the room on starting with AI and what and how to get buy-in? Want to go first, Gary?
Yeah, I just go back to what is the experience you're trying to create for your customer, whether it's a magical pizza experience or anything else like that. And then, starting with that vision of what you want, that relationship and what that experience for the customer, and then kind of figuring out like, how does AI help you in that journey? And like, what are the pieces that you need to, do to create that? Keeping the focus on the customer and how you can enrich that experience and make it better with AI. That's my one piece of advice, is start with the customer and then figure out like, what are the, process pieces that go to make that experience, and you'll find success.
I echo with your thoughts. I would also suggest like focus on the customer, focus on what their goals are, and if they meet their goals, you're meeting your goals. Don't run after ROIs, metrics, figure out what's already established and see how that can be accelerated. The question I think needs to shift from why do we need AI, but how can AI solve for the who, when, and where, and then leave the why part to the humans, because we're still going to need people to drive that engagement. I don't see a world where everything is going to be automated by AI. We're still going to need people, because at the end of the day, our customers are people, we're people. So there's absolute a need for human touch, especially in certain industries. So leave the automation piece to AI, build your relationships, and see how you can scale AI rapidly and responsibly.
Great. I think that concludes our session. Obviously, you guys will be around for a happy hour, and thank you. Appreciate you guys taking the time and all the rehearsals and prep sessions.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.